welcome back on the road. Yeah, we're on our way to Greymouth right now, down right along the coastline of the west coast, in that beautiful mountainous rainforest coastline. It's just sick. So I'll basically immediately switch the camera just for you guys to enjoy. And I basically started right where I left off, and that was me coming to Nelson. That is now basically 4.5 months ago, and it's been cool. I originally only planned to stay in Nelson, I think it was for 2 nights, and then I started reconsidering my plans and getting the car. But I was planning to hanging out with a friend that I met in Auckland there, which was really nice, just exploring the town. And basically right before I got the car, I was on my way back to my hostel and ran into this guy, and we started talking because he was waiting along the street. I was skating by, and he just started talking. And it was pretty fun. We got along fairly well, and then we started hanging out at his place, and I met a few of his other friends. And right when I got the car, they were just like, yeah, you can park here and let us show you around. So the first few days that I had the car, we basically did like little road trips every day. Went to Whahariki Beach, so the Windows Beach, and all these sick places. It was a lot of fun. Went to Kaitiri, that's right at the bottom of Abel Tasman National Park. Beautiful beach. It was a lot of fun. Like, that region has so much to offer. But my original plan was basically doing the tour that I'm doing right now. But everything didn't really end out how I planned it. So from Nelson, I actually immediately went to Christchurch on the completely opposite side of the South Island, and that was pretty fun as well, because I met with an Australian girl there that I met in Napier or however, who gives a shit. And because she was about to leave, she was a little bit ahead of me all the time. So she gave me a lot of good recommendations of places where I needed to go. But yeah, we hung out in Christchurch for I think like 2 or 3 days. Did some nice hikes on the peninsula together. That was pretty cool. The Mount Herbert hike, for everybody who goes there, one of the best views you can get there, and it's not too far into the peninsula. Beautiful area. Like basically like the west coast, but without the rainforest on it. It's these really blank looking, overgrown with grass mountains and like tiny bushes. Still really beautiful because all the bays there, fantastic. And one day, like the day where I didn't meet with her, I went to the complete back part of the peninsula because I wanted to go to a place called Fisherman's Bay Garden because it looked pretty beautiful on Google Maps. But then I had the problem that when I finally got there, it was closed. So that was a little bit sad. But then I went to just the national park area. Oh god, this coastline looks so beautiful. But yeah, I went to like a little park area down there where they still had conserved a part of the forest, and was like, yeah, let's just have a little walk down there. And I saw there was like a 40-minute walk to a waterfall. But one thing that I realized on the way up was it was still like late summer, so everything was pretty much dry. And I walked up that stream and there was that tiny dribble of water in there, and I was like, oh, okay. Like really reduced my hopes for a nice waterfall. Yeah, and when I got there, I had one big realization, which is a waterfall without without water. It's just a cliff. Yeah, so it was just like that cliffside in the forest. It still was pretty nice. I sat down there, relaxed for a bit, and looked down and saw this patch of clovers. And I always loved the thought of Lucky Charms. So if I see a patch of clovers, I'm always looking for a 4-leaf clover. And I once read it, apparently it's like a 1 in 10,000 chance for that mutation to appear. So with a tiny patch, I didn't expect too much. But then I found a 4-leaf clover, and I went wild. It was like the second time in my life overall that I found a 4-leaf clover. I was excited, and I took a really nice picture there. I'm gonna put it in here. And then I looked down, and I saw another one, and that's where I just started blanking out. I was speechless. I was just going crazy. And in that patch, I just saw more and more and more. I found seven 4-leaf clovers there. It was so insane. Like, okay, actually I found 8, but I only picked 7 because it's like, I took a lot of their luck for me, at least leave one behind for another person to maybe find it. So insane. But yeah, I think I really like Christchurch, but not the city itself. Like for me, Christchurch, it's way more about the peninsula and just the accessibility that it gives to you, because from Christchurch you can still go anywhere on the South Island fairly quick, or at least like not everything's kind of the same distance. There's nothing that's too far for like a quick trip to get there. But yeah, from Christchurch I then immediately skipped over to the west coast again. So needed to go through the mountains again, and god damn the mountainsides here. When we get down to the Southern Alps, I just love them. They're so beautiful and so amazing. But yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, because on that way you get through Arthur's Pass. Like you have multiple passes that get through the Southern Alps. On the way down from Nelson I took oh god, how's it called again? I forgot the name of that one. Lewis Pass, I think it is. And then a little bit lower you have Arthur's Pass. But on the way to Arthur's Pass, I found basically one of my absolute favorite places in New Zealand, which is Castle Hill. Castle Hill is such an amazing place. It's these limestone formations that were built through the glaciers melting and really engraving the sediment, and it's just that ocean of boulders and natural labyrinth of these really smooth boulders just in the middle of nowhere. They're amazing, and it's just a climber's paradise. Oh my god. Yeah, it's a climber's paradise. And when I got there the first time, I swore myself the next time I get there, I'm gonna be there with my own climbing shoes, which didn't work out, because the next time that I got there, I coming from the west coast, and on the west coast there's no goddamn climbing store. It was so bad, but I managed to do it later. But yeah, that's for a different time. But yeah, I love Castle Hill. Absolutely sick place, and definitely gonna hit it up on this road trip again as well. But yeah, and then I slept in Arthur's Pass on a dock campsite, and it was amazing. It was right by the river, even though at that time there was basically no river in there. It's one thing I realized. It's when you look on Google Maps, at so many places. You expect these great massive water sources coming around the corner, and you come around the corner and it was just a massive gray area and this of stone, and then this tiny stream in the middle, just because in the summer it's pretty much dried out. But yeah, we're now, when we're gonna pass a lot of these, there's gonna be way more water in there, just because now there's a lot of snow melting and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for what's to come. But yeah, it's coming down the west coast. My next stop was Prince Joseph, and that was like one of my first really long drives that I did down here, because it's like, especially down the west coast, the distances look so small, but because a lot of the road just winds along the mountains, you can't really drive that fast, and it's way longer than it appears. So like from the middle of Athos Pass to Prince Joseph was like a 3.5 hours drive. But Prince Joseph is pretty amazing. And I met a really cool British girl there who worked for the skydiving, and she basically had a full house for herself from her employer. She technically only rented a room, but because she was the only one in that particular house at the time, she had the whole house for herself. So I had a free room to stay for the time, and did some pretty amazing hikes. Didn't have the greatest weather, but especially the Roberts Point hike, I probably want to do that one again as well. It's really cool. It's I think 8 kilometers to get there. Oh no, it's less. I think it was like in 14 kilometers return, something like that. But it's a really cool track, multiple swing bridges. If it's clear, you get a really nice view of the glacier. Such a cool place. And really coincidentally and funnily, in Prince Joseph, while sitting in a restaurant, I randomly met a friend from Auckland again. A Spanish guy that was in my hotel right when I got to Auckland. And we only had contact in Auckland for like a few days until he left as well. But we randomly stumbled into each other, only had a little bit of contact in between, because for most of the time I was far ahead on along the route I went. And yeah, we stumbled into each other, and he had the same realization that I had, that basically without a car and only with the bus, you're really bound and can't really do a lot of stuff around here. And yeah, we decided to travel together, because he offered to pay for the gas, because I already paid for the car. In that sense, it was still cheaper for him than having a hostel and everything. So from there, from Prince Joseph on, basically the whole southern part of the South Island, I traveled with him. And I'm still surprised looking back on how great that worked. It was insane. For not knowing that person that well, living on the closest possible room imaginable, like a car, a normal car, living in there with 2 people that barely know each other, but it worked so well. I'm still so happy about that connection. Definitely gonna visit him when I'm back in Europe. And yeah, it's like from there we went down further along the west coast, and the next night we slept at Jackson Bay. It's basically the furthest south. Oh, do you see the snowy peak in the back? That looks so sick. But yeah, it's in Jackson Bay. That was a beautiful place, but by far the worst sandfly experience ever. I mentioned it last time when I mentioned the sandflies, But I had the trunk open for like half an hour, and I know that it's quite long, but it wasn't a problem before that at all to have that open. And usually I have the front windows open, just a little slit for air circulation. That night, it was like when the sun was going down and we saw how many were in the car, it was crazy. We were just sitting like, before it got dark, we were just burning them away from our window with our lighters, just burning them away. And then even when it got dark, we had one light on over us, and it was a dark cloud surrounding it. We were just swatting into that cloud, and hoping that at some point it might be reduced. It was insane. My car was black everywhere because of all the dead sandflies. Like I reckon we were in the high hundreds, if not maybe even in the thousands of sandflies that we killed. It was so crazy. But yeah, at least we had that as a bad example afterwards. There was like something quite early in our traveling together. We had like some of the not worst experience in the sense that they were actually bad, but they set the tone for our traveling together, that everything that wasn't as bad coming afterwards was just chill. So every sandfly situation afterwards, it was always like, at least it's not Jackson Bay. And after Jackson Bay, we went to Wanaka. So we went through Haast Pass, through the mountains, back into more the inside of the mainland, like the Southland. And Wanaka is such a beautiful area. It's when New Zealand starts being like the land of lakes for me. It's like the middle section of the South Island, because New Zealand has these massive, beautiful lakes right between the mountains. And if you're not there, sometimes you don't really get the perspective about how big these lakes are. It's Lake Pukaki that's in front of Mount Cook. It seems massive when you're there and on pictures, but you don't realize that when you drive to Mount Cook along the river, along the lake, it's 50 kilometers until you pass the river. And that's not even the longest. The longest one is the one down at Queenstown that has 80 kilometers of length. It's insane. They're so big. But yeah, in Wanaka, we finally met some friends of the British girl that I met in French Joseph. So, and finally had the same plan. So with them the next day, we did the Royce Peak hike for the sunrise. It's like a pretty common thing to do, and it's definitely worth it. Like I get why so many people do it, even though you need to get up pretty early. But the sunrise view from up there is insane. But our camp was close to Cromwell, that's a little bit more south, and we needed to drive to Wanaka 40 minutes. So we got up at like 3 in the morning, immediately got ready, drove over there, started the hike at like 4:10 or something like that, and then the hike immediately just punches you in the face. Like, it's not a chill hike. The peak is at I think 1,500 meters, and you start on 300 above sea level, 200 above sea level, so you have 1,300 meters of elevation, and it's basically just elevation. It's 8 kilometers to the peak and then 8 kilometers down again, and the whole way up you have 2 little passages where it's flat, and the rest is just steep uphill the whole time. And when you do that as the first thing of the day, it's just it's fucked up. Yeah, it's really just, the start was the worst part, and also the end, because I was dumb. That was fully my fault, but I got pretty stressed out about being on time to the peak, and like shortly before the peak, you have the option to diverse the path and stay on the spine of the mountain. And it's shorter, and you have a constant view towards where the sunrise is going to be. But the trek is so much worse, and it's so much steeper. And it was the point where I was like, I need to keep pushing, because if I stop now, I won't be able to continue walking. That really fucked me over. And we got to the top and then still need to wait 20 minutes. And we could have easily made it on time just sticking to the normal path. But I was just paranoid. But it's such an amazing start in the day. We had this perfect weather. It was really cloudy when we started, and the more we got up, the more it just opened up and it got really beautiful. So absolutely, I can recommend it to anyone coming to Wanaka to do that one. And yeah, when we went back down, we jumped into Lake Wanaka to clean us off, because it was still beautiful weather, amazing start. Didn't even really wanted to leave the water, but then we had nice breakfast and started our travels down towards Queenstown, and that was a pretty sick part of the trip as well. And yeah, it's like Roy's Peak got our standard for bad hikes afterwards. Like every time we got elevation, then it was just like, at least it's not Roy's Peak. But yeah, it was great. It was absolutely great. It's like basically from there on, we started a pretty heavy part of my Lord of the Rings Nerds tour, because around that area going south around Queenstown, there are so many filming locations for Lord of the Rings. It's insane. So on that way down, the first stop was the filming location for the Argonath, and I'm gonna pick you guys up for a second just to show you that beautiful river view towards both sides. We're basically in Greymouth right now, almost at my destination. But yeah, it's like the first one we went to was coming down along the river towards Arrowtown. We went to the filming location for the Argonath, and these are these massive statues along the river at the ending of the first movie, or towards the ending of the first movie. And that location is pretty sick. Just the color of that water and driving along that valley, it's such a beautiful scenery. And then you get to Arrowtown, and that's a location where, especially for the extended edition, a lot of the scenes with surrounding Isildur's death are filmed there. And it's just a really nice little town in between the mountains as well. And yeah, then you get further out of the mountains, deeper into the mountain line surrounding Queenstown, and God, it's such a beautiful area. The first time seeing the lake by Queenstown was just insane. That view is so sick, with the steep mountains coming up on both sides. It's so cool. But yeah, on that day we didn't even go into Queenstown. We just had a quick break to get groceries, and then we went down to the campsite that's close to Kingston. And that campsite is so beautiful. It's a freedom campsite as well, and oh my god, it's absolutely fantastic. Such a beautiful, it's right by the lake, beautiful view, and you actually have quite good reception there still. But I think I'm gonna make the pause here now. I'm gonna do the rest of the podcast later. And yeah, it's like the next day after sleeping at that beautiful site in Kingston, we went, like the plan originally was just having a little detour on the way up, drive up to the remarkable ski resort, because it's pretty cool that you can do that, and go to Lake Alta, which is a little lake right between the summits, and it's basically just from molten snow and rain, but it's really cold. And yeah, originally the plan was just going up there, taking a look, and then towards the lunchtime go into Queenstown. But we got up to Lake Alta, and there was this couple where the guy wanted to jump into it, and I was like, oh, that would be sick. It's beautiful weather, but I don't have any swimming clothes. And he was like, yeah, me neither. And I was like, yeah, okay, but I also don't have anything to dry myself off. And then I was like, me neither. And like, dude, fuck, you're making all my excuses. Like, you're destroying all my excuses. And I was like, yeah, okay, give me a little bit of time, and I'll think about it. And we're hanging out. He was jumping in, and oh my god, look at that view. Especially to the left. It's just, and to the right as well. That's what I meant with just showing off that beauty of the landscapes that I'm just regularly passing through here. That's just how this country looks like. It's insane to me. And yeah, like when he came out and he was like, it was cold, and I was like thinking about it and wasn't sure, and I was just thinking loudly. I was like, if I at least had anything to dry myself off afterwards, I would just jump into in my underwear. And right at that moment, a girl passed by and she was just like, yeah, you can use my towel. And then I was like, oh, god damn it. Okay. Immediately started like undressing to my underwear, and then jumped in. And actually that's one of the things where I still have the video from, so I'm gonna put that one in here now.
Jump there, I'm recording you.
Yeah.
Don't act like a pussy now, he's joining the video.
That was really cool. It was really cold, but also then we figured out that you were actually able to walk up to the summit, at least to one of them, not the highest one, but to the one right next to it. It's pretty wild to get up there. That's why at first we didn't think that you were even allowed to, because it didn't seem like there was an official path, but there was. And damn, that view from up there was insane. We had a clear blue day, like kind of the way it is now, and the view from up there, how far you can see all over the lake, all around Queenstown, it's insane. I'm definitely gonna put it over here as well, because that's like a period where I still have videos from. And so good, but everything took way longer than we originally planned, so it was already later afternoon when we got into Queenstown, and we were just like getting something to eat, looking around a little bit, but nothing too crazy. That was kind of like some of the stuff we planned for the next day. And on that night that was insane as well. We slept at Mocha Lake. that's a little bit left of Queenstown. God, I need to change it. It's so gorgeous. The ones in the distance, but also just the ones to the left are coming up again. Can't get enough of the view. But well, yeah, we went to Mocha Lake. Beautiful little lake right between mountains as well. Pretty long railroad to get there as well. Nothing too crazy, but it was one of the first longer ones, and absolutely no reception. But that's something you get used to in New Zealand, that you're not always having a reception or reception at all. So that's not a problem anymore. But in that night, it was a beautiful, clear night. So my Spanish friend and I went out of the car and were stargazing, and I saw a shooting star, just like a normal one, and we started that conversation like that. The typical thing about that, most shooting stars, I'm sad to break it to you, most shooting stars aren't actually meteors. It's just space trash. It's just stuff that's falling down, but it was also shut up from us. It's just metal pieces. But we came to the topic that one thing on how you can realize if something's actually a meteor is if you have one that actually has like a pretty colorful and long tail. So it's really like that long stream coming down, because it means it's quite a mass, and if it's, especially if it's blue, you definitely know it's a meteor, because none of the stuff that we shoot up there should have blue stream while burning down. So it's pretty sure. And while I was saying that to him, I saw one starting above his head, and we're like kind of shifted towards each other a little bit while talking and looking up, and that one burned for so long and had such a long tail that he had enough time turning around and still seeing it. That was so crazy. Like, I needed to turn my head to actually follow the whole thing, and we went wild. That was like one of the craziest oh my god moments in a long time. And like this insane one. Like, New Zealand is a constant oh my god moment, but even for New Zealand standards, that was just insane. But because the campsite is pretty much like separated by bushes, like single spots, you completely forget that how many people are around you. So we had one guy like slowly creeping over through the dark, and then was just like really insistent on please be quiet. But yeah, I got it. We were way too loud, and we definitely immediately toned it down. Yeah, and next day, pretty chill. Went into Queenstown, looked around. We took the gondola rides up, where you get a really nice view from the viewpoint as well. And then you have like these loops. It's like little carts you can ride, and oh my god, it was so much fun. There was one part in it, because it has like a lot of these dips, kind of waves coming down, so we would just try to go as fast as you can, and I went flying like every time. We just like lift off, and it immediately drops into like a 180 left turn, so I was just like drop down, immediately lean in, almost flip over. But yeah, it was pretty funny. And the day after, we basically started a little trip up along the river towards Glenorchy, keeping to fulfill my Lord of the Rings nerd dream of. I think we hit up like 3 or 4 different locations on that day. It was so cool. Like with one of the locations, we found like the exact shot, like the place where they exactly shot it from, and that's so cool. If you get that feeling where you're like really a dead spot. And that was like one reason why I love. Just you feel so immersed because you're at the place. You really feel like you're at the place in Middle Earth, and it's so sick. But even just seeing these landscapes for me every time just reminds me of Lord of the Rings. These right in front of us, these are the Misty Mountains, the Southern Alps of New Zealand. It's so cool. These movies, like anybody who says they don't like them, they haven't seen them. Like I know no person who has seen Lord of the Rings who doesn't like them. And if you don't like them, there's something heavily wrong with you. But yeah, enough from that tangent. But yeah, we went to Ithilien, we went to Lothlorien, we went to Isengard on that day. It was pretty sick. It's beautiful up there as well. Probably, I think I'm gonna go up there as well because there's still one other place that was a little bit too far off that we hadn't went to on that day. Maybe I'll do it on this trip. So we'll see. And yeah, from there on, we originally wanted to leave after that day, but then in Queenstown we met this really cool group of guys who basically invited, like we hung out with them for a bit, and then they, when we said we needed to leave for the campsite, they invited us to basically stay at their place and just park there. So we're like, oh cool, sick, and had a really nice barbecue with them. And yeah, it turns out that guy who invited us, he's a really good DJ and had like a full party room. And basically ended up that we had the barbecue with them and then basically a private rave at their place. And it was so much fun. It was so cool. Yeah, and the next day we just hung out with them a little bit more, curing the hangover a little bit as well. And then went further down south, like back to the site in Kingston on that day. Because the next day we camped at Mavora Lakes. And Mavora Lakes is a really sick place as well, because that's the lakes where the ending part of the first movie is filmed, where they arrive with the kayaks or like little ship, the boats they have. And you have a campsite right there, so you can camp right at the location, and it's so cool. But it was such a cold night, oh my god. And yeah, it was like really, the night before it already cooled down quite a lot, and at that time I only had one blanket and my summer sleeping bag, which definitely wasn't enough for the overall coldness that it got down. Because that night, I don't know how cold it got exactly, but in the next morning when we left at like 9, it was still 3 degrees, and we froze. And yeah, that was pretty rough, but it still wasn't that bad. It still didn't have any night that was like crazily cold, but there were quite a few where I started to freeze, and then it's just like that uncomfortable coldness. But right now I've got quite a good amount of stuff to keep me warm, so it hasn't been a problem in a while. And yeah, beautiful place. From there we went down to Te Anau, and like to get to Mavora Lakes is 37 kilometers of gravel road just to get there. So we had 37 to get there, 37 on the way back, and I actually got a flat tire right when we got back on the asphalt road. It was so annoying. So we needed to change the tire, get down to Te Anau, and the repair place needed to order the tire because they didn't have one left, so I needed to wait another day, and then only in the late afternoon had the appointment, so we needed to stay longer in Tiano than expected and planned, but it still turned into some good things. But I think that's something for another episode. I thank you very much for listening again. Hope you tune in for the next story time in the car again. And wish you all have a great day. And I'm gonna enjoy the sunset soon. Bye bye.